The car died in front of the most expensive building in Seoul at exactly the wrong time. Not a quiet death, not a dignified stall, a full dramatic implosion, hood smoking, the engine making a sound like a dying goat at a funeral, and Sophia Okonkwo standing beside it with one hand on her hip, one hand holding a container of jollof rice she had been eating while driving, and zero apologies for either situation. She looked at the car. The car did not look back because it had given up on their relationship entirely. She looked at the building. Glass and steel, and the kind of architecture that cost more than her entire hometown's annual budget, wrapped in silence and dim gold light, and the very specific atmosphere of a place that did not want people like her anywhere near it. Then she looked at the two men in black suits who had materialized from the entrance, like expensive shadows, and were now staring at her with the controlled blankness of people trained to handle disruptions without raising their voices. "Madam," the taller one said, "you cannot park here." Sophia took a long, unhurried spoonful of jollof rice. "I'm not parked," she said, chewing thoughtfully. "I'm broken down. There's a difference. Parking implies intention. This," she gestured at the smoking hood with her spoon, "is a tragedy. You need to move your vehicle." "Brother," she said pleasantly, "if I could move my vehicle, do you think I would be standing here at 11 o'clock at night in Seoul, eating jollof rice next to a dead Hyundai? Tahan, do I look like a woman who makes this choice voluntarily?" If you've ever watched a woman argue with a building and somehow make the building seem unreasonable, you understand what happened next. Hit that subscribe button now, like this video, and tell me where you are watching from. Because here's what the two guards did not know about Sophia Okonkwo. She was 31 years old, a structural engineer from Enugu who had come to Seoul on a 2-year infrastructure contract that had just tonight collapsed in a way that rivaled her car. She had not cried. She had bought jollof rice from the only Nigerian restaurant she had found in this entire city, which was 40 minutes away, by a car that was now apparently retired. She had been driving home to her apartment, former apartment as of 6 hours ago, one when her project funding was suspended and her accommodation stipend along with it, when the car made its decision. She was not scared. She was not small. She was 5'9", broad-shouldered, magnificently curvy in the way that made structural engineers make structural calculations about door frames, and she had survived things considerably more hostile than two Korean men in suits. She was also blocking the private entrance to Obsidian Tower, which was, though she did not yet know it, a problem of exceptional significance, because Obsidian Tower was not merely a building, and the man walking out of its golden doors at that precise moment was not merely a man. Han Seo Jin stopped walking when he saw her, not because she was blocking the entrance, not because of the smoking Hyundai or the midnight standoff with his security detail, nor the entirely surreal image of a woman eating rice beside a vehicular catastrophe with the composure of someone who had simply decided the evening would go her way. He stopped because she looked at him the moment he appeared, tilted her head exactly once and said, "Are you the owner of this building?" No deference. No apology, not even a particular amount of interest. Just a direct question from a woman who had already assessed the situation and decided he was the most relevant person in it. Seo Jin was 38 years old. He had spent the last 15 of those years building something that the South Korean government officially called a private equity conglomerate, and unofficially knew better than to look at too directly. And he had 6 people waiting in the boardroom upstairs for a decision that would restructure financial movements across 3 countries. He had walked out of that room 5 minutes ago because he needed 60 seconds of cold air to make the kind of decision that doesn't benefit from warmth. He had not planned to encounter this. "Yes," he said, "wonderful." She held out her container. "My car is dead in front of your building. Do you want some jollof rice while we figure out what to do about that?" Behind him, his head of security, Park Min-ho, made a sound that was technically not a laugh. It was closer to a controlled implosion of the face. Seo Jin looked at the woman, then at the smoking Hyundai, then at the container of rice she was still holding in his direction with genuine hospitality. Then he had attended meetings with presidents and sat across tables from men who had tried to have him killed. Not one of them had offered him food. "Get her car towed," he told Min-ho, "and find out where she needs to go." He went back inside. Sophia watched him leave. She looked at the security guard she'd been arguing with. "You see that?" she said. Communication, that's all it takes. She ate another spoonful of rice. This is not a love story. Not yet. Not for a long time. What it is a story about a woman who parked a dead car in front of a man's life and changed every single thing about it, beginning with things neither of them understood yet. Min-ho arranged a car, a proper one, black, quiet, the kind with heated seats and a driver who didn't ask questions. He also, on instruction he didn't entirely understand, one arranged for Sophia's Jollof rice container to be delivered back to her when she left, because she had set it on the roof of her car while looking for her phone, and they had nearly driven away with it. She noticed that. She filed it somewhere. The next morning, Seo Jin received the incident report the way he received all reports. At his desk, coffee on the left, Seoul spread out below him in the particular gray of November. Minho's reports were comprehensive. They covered everything relevant and nothing that wasn't. This one was 7 lines. Woman, Sophia Okonkwo, Nigerian national structural engineer, 2-year government contract with Hanyang Infrastructure Group, currently suspended due to budget restructuring. Contract value, significant. Project, the Seongbuk Elevated Bridge Connector, one which had been stalled for 4 months because nobody had solved the load-bearing calculation problem that the previous 3 engineering firms had declared unsolvable. Seo Jin read the last part twice. He set the report down. He looked at the window. Then he picked up his phone. "Find out if she has somewhere to stay," he said. Minho paused. "Sir?" "The engineer from last night. Find out if the accommodation issue is resolved." Another pause, the particular kind Minho deployed when he was deciding whether a question was appropriate. He decided it wasn't. "Yes, sir." What Minho found was this. Sophia Okonkwo had checked into a guest house in Mapo-gu that charged by the week, was currently booked for exactly 1 week, and had 4 hours earlier submitted a formal complaint to Hanyang Infrastructure Group's HR department that was, one by any measure, the most technically precise takedown of a corporate budget reallocation decision ever written by someone who was also clearly furious. Minho presented this to Seo Jin with the neutral expression of a man who had learned that his boss's decisions occasionally defied anticipation, but rarely defied logic, in retrospect. "The bridge project," Seo Jin said. "Yes? We have a 15% stake in the financing consortium." "We do. Find out who's blocking the budget restoration." Minho found out within 2 hours. It was not a complicated answer. It was a man named Director Cheon at the Ministry of Infrastructure who had, over the preceding 8 months, redirected 5 separate government contracts toward a construction group in which he held a private interest. The Seongbuk project was one of them. Sophia's contract suspension was a direct consequence of his interference. Seo Jin read the second report. He set it beside the first. He had not thought about the bridge. He had not thought about Director Cheon. He had thought about a woman standing beside a dead car at midnight, offering rice to a stranger with the composure of someone who had decided the world would simply have to accommodate her because she did not have time to accommodate it. He had thought about the fact that she didn't flinch when she saw him. Most people flinched, not from anything visible, just from the particular weight of being in a room with Han Seo Jin, a weight that he had never decided to create and had long ago stopped apologizing for. She had looked at him like he was a person. And he didn't have a word for how long it had been since someone had done that without wanting something in return. He made 3 calls, the kind of calls that don't leave records and don't require explanations. By Thursday, Director Cheon's private interest in the construction group had been brought to the attention of 2 people whose attention Director Cheon very much did not want. By Friday, the Seongbuk project's budget had been quietly restored through an amended financing arrangement. Sophia received the notification on Friday at 2 in the afternoon while eating rice in her guest house room. She had found a small cooker she was managing and nearly fell off the bed. She read the email 3 times. Then she called her contact at Hanyang, who confirmed it, sounded baffled, and congratulated her on whatever she'd done. Although nobody could quite identify what that was, she had done nothing, which meant someone else had. She sat very still in her guest house room with her phone in her hand, thinking. She was an engineer. She understood systems. She understood that effects have causes, and causes have sources, and the source of this particular effect was not the Ministry of Infrastructure, which had been blocking this project for 4 months and had reversed course in 4 days. She picked up her phone. She called the number Minho had given her when he arranged the car, a courtesy number, he'd said, in case of any further vehicle emergencies. Minho answered on the second ring. "I need to speak with the owner of the building," she said. A pause. "May I ask why?" "Someone fixed something they had no reason to fix. I want to say thank you. And I was raised properly." Another pause. Longer. "I'll pass your message along." "No," she said. "I'll say it myself. I don't do secondhand gratitude. It loses something in translation." Minho was quiet for 4 seconds. Then, "I'll see what I can arrange." What he arranged was coffee at a place that was technically a cafe, but felt more like a boardroom with better lighting. Seo Jin arrived 3 minutes after she did. She had arrived 5 minutes early because she was an engineer and engineers respect systems, including the system of time. She was wearing a burnt orange wrap dress and had her hair up in a bun the size of a small country, secured with 2 pencils, because she had come from the site and had not had time to retrieve proper accessories. She stood when he entered, not from deference, and just from the habit of a woman who met people standing because it was easier to read them at full height. They looked at each other. "You fixed my contract," she said. He sat down. "I don't know what you're referring to." "You do, but that's fine." She sat too. "I'm not here to make you admit anything. I'm here because my mother taught me that when someone does something good for you, you look them in the eye and you say thank you." "So?" She held his gaze. "Thank you." Seo Jin looked at her for a long moment. He had received gratitude before. It usually came packaged in calculation, the gratitude of people who understood that Seo Jin's goodwill was a resource and Thanksgiving was an investment. The gratitude of people who were already planning the follow-up request. This woman looked like she had no follow-up request. And she looked like she had come here specifically and only to say those 2 words and was already mentally preparing to leave. "You're welcome," he said. She nodded once, started to stand. "The bridge," he said. "The Seongbuk connector, the load-bearing problem." She settled back. "What about it?" 3 firms said it was unsolvable. 3 firms were wrong. "How?" She looked at him for a moment, recalibrating. Then she reached into her bag, pulled out a notebook, the thick, battered kind covered in calculations and small sketches, and placed it open on the table between them. They were all trying to compensate for the lateral load variance by strengthening the primary supports, she said. "That's the obvious solution. It's also the wrong one, because the soil composition shifts 4 meters below the east bank. One, you can't anchor something rigid into moving ground. You have to design for movement instead of against it. Build the flexibility into the structure itself." She tapped a diagram on the left page, clean, precise, annotated in 2 colors. "Suspended tension redistribution. I've been working on it for 6 weeks. Nobody asked me, but I've been working on it." Seo Jin looked at the diagram. He was not an engineer, but he understood systems. He understood the logic of building something that could move without breaking. He looked up at her. "Show me the rest of it," he said. She showed him. For 45 minutes over coffee she barely drank because she kept using her cup to demonstrate load angles, she walked him through an engineering solution that was genuinely elegant. Not just functional, elegant, on the way only things built by someone who understood both the science and the poetry of a problem could be. He asked 3 questions. She answered all of them before he finished asking. When she finally packed the notebook away, the cafe was half empty and the light had changed. "Why do you care about this bridge?" she asked. He considered the question. "I care about things that should exist but don't yet because the wrong people got in the way." She looked at him. "That's either a very noble thing to say or a very complicated thing to say." "Probably both." She almost smiled. The architecture of it arrived and then she pulled it back, stored it somewhere. He noticed. "I have to get back to the site," she said. "Do you need a car?" She laughed, the first real laugh, sudden and warm and entirely unself-conscious, and filling the space around her the way a laugh should. "Is that your solution to everything?" "It's a practical solution to a recurring problem." My car will be fixed by Friday. I negotiated the mechanic down from extortion to merely expensive. She stood, slung her bag. Don't send a car, Mr. Han, I'll manage. She walked out. At the door, she didn't look back. He stayed in his seat for a moment longer than necessary. Then he picked up his phone. Minho, he said, find out if the guest house in Mapogu has adequate heating. Sir? November is cold. He hung up. Outside, Seoul moved through its afternoon, indifferent and brilliant, and Han Seo Jin sat in a cafe with a cold cup of coffee and the image of a woman explaining bridge tension redistribution with a ceramic cup, and felt, for the first time in a very long time, like a man who had been surprised by something good. Sophia did not think about Han Seo Jin when she got back to the site. She thought about him exactly once, briefly on the bus, and then she put the thought away with the efficiency of a woman who had built her entire adult life on the principle that feelings were fine, but physics was load-bearing. One of them had a direct application to bridge construction. What she thought about on the bus was her mother's voice on the phone 3 days ago, warm and slightly exasperated. Sophia, you are in Korea building bridges. When are you building anything at home? And Sophia's answer, which she had given with more sharpness than she intended. Mama, I am building things everywhere I go. One, that is the nature of building. She thought about the fact that her older brother Emeka had laughed at her when she said she was going to Korea. Her aunties had opinions. Her childhood friend Bisi had asked whether Korean men found Nigerian women attractive, and Sophia had said, Bisi, I am going there to build a bridge, not to find a husband. And Bisi had said, those things are not mutually exclusive, and Sophia had hung up. She thought about none of this as relevant. She thought about all of this constantly because the body is not always under the mind's supervision. The site was active when she arrived. Workers, equipment, the particular productive chaos of a project that had been restarted after a pause. Everything slightly out of sync, everyone recalibrating. Her site foreman, a compact man named Kim Do-yeon, who communicated primarily through eyebrow expressions and had been on this project longer than she had, met her at the entrance with a clipboard and the look of a man who had things to report. The East Bank measurements came back, he said. The soil shift is larger than projected. How much larger? 18 centimeters over 12 meters. Sophia took the clipboard, studied it. That's actually better for my calculations, she said. Consistent shift is easier to design for than irregular shift. Get me the updated soil reports and I'll adjust the suspension ratios tonight. Do-yeon looked at her. Tonight? Do you have another timeline? He did not. He handed her the reports. She worked until 10 p.m. alone in the site office. Once, which was a prefabricated room with one heater and a drafting table she had requisitioned on her second day because the standard desks were 30 centimeters too low and her back was not interested in suffering for inadequate furniture. Her laptop ran calculations. She ran pencil across paper simultaneously because some things were faster by hand. She ate the last of her jollof rice, cold, directly from the container, and did not find this undignified. Her phone buzzed at 9:45. Unknown number, Seoul area code. She answered because she was an engineer and unknown numbers sometimes contained structural information. Ms. Okonkwo, said a voice that was not Minho's. Lower, quieter. Are you still at the site? She recognized it immediately, set her pencil down. How do you have this number? Minho is thorough. Mr. Han, she said. It is 10 at night. Yes. What do you want? There's a man named Director Cheon who became aware this week that his involvement in your project's budget disruption was documented. He's currently determining who documented it. He's a careful man. Careful men ask uncomfortable questions when they feel cornered. She was quiet. Should I be concerned? I wanted you to know the situation so you can make informed decisions about your movements. That's all. She understood then that this was not a simple phone call. She understood that something she'd been inside without knowing was now being shown to her from the outside, and the shape of it was larger than a budget dispute. Mr. Han, she said, what are you actually involved in? Complex things. That is not an answer. No, he said, it isn't. One, but it's an honest not answer, which I thought you'd prefer over a dishonest one. She sat with that for a moment. She thought about the kind of man who arranged things without being asked and called at 10 p.m. to make sure someone else was safe. She thought about the cafe and the coffee she barely drank, and the 45 minutes he had listened to her talk about bridge dynamics without once looking at his phone. "I'm going home in 20 minutes," she said. "I have a car now, a working one. I will drive myself." "Good. Thank you for telling me. Good night, Miss Okonkwo." She sat for a moment after the call ended. Then she picked up her pencil. Then she put it back down. Then she picked it up again and wrote 3 numbers in the margin of her calculation sheet that had nothing to do with bridge load ratios. They were, when she told herself, structural observations about a different kind of load bearing. She had never been very convincing to herself. The threat arrived at the construction site on a Wednesday morning, which Sophia thought was a particularly uninspired choice of day for a threat. Wednesdays were already difficult. The scheduling did not improve matters. She found it in the site office when she arrived at 7. A single sheet of paper in Korean slipped under the door. Her Korean was functional but not perfect. She photographed it and sent it to her translator app, read the output twice, then sat down in her chair and breathed through her nose for a controlled moment. The translation was, "The Seongbuk project belongs to others, engineers who continue to make problems disappear. This is a professional advice." She did not panic. Well, she was not built for panic. What she was built for was assessment, and what she assessed was this. Someone knew she was the reason the budget had been restored. Someone had connected her to Han Seo Jin's intervention. Someone considered her a disruption worth threatening. She photographed the note, saved it in 3 places, and called Minho. He answered immediately. "There's a note," she said, "under the door at my site. I'll send it to you." "Don't touch it again. Is anything else out of place?" "I don't know. I arrived 30 seconds ago." "Stay inside. Don't send anyone out before I've called back." She stayed inside. She made tea from the small electric kettle on the filing cabinet because she had learned that maintaining normal actions during abnormal moments kept her brain functional. She waited. Minho called back in 4 minutes. "I've sent 2 people. They'll be there in 15. Don't let anyone in until you see their credentials." "Minho," she said, "how did this person know to come to my site?" A pause that told her he already had a theory. "We'll discuss that when I get there." "Are you coming personally?" "The boss is coming personally," he said, "which means I'm coming too." She sat with her tea and looked at the note from across the room where it lay on the floor. She was not scared. She was something more specific than scared, which was the feeling of a person who has just discovered that they are inside a story considerably larger than the chapter they thought they were reading. Seo Jin arrived at the construction site in Seongbuk with the economy of a man who had done emergency arrivals before and found unnecessary urgency wasteful. Ani got out of the car, looked at the bridge framework over the Han tributary. Strong bones, she'd designed good bones, and walked into the site office with Minho and 2 other men who arranged themselves near the door without being asked. Sophia was standing at the drafting table when he came in. She had her arms crossed and her chin up, and she looked at him with the expression of a woman who had decided that whatever was happening, she was going to understand it fully and immediately. He respected that. He also found it in the particular way of a man who had spent 15 years surrounded by people who understood things incompletely on purpose, startling. "Director Cheon didn't send this," he said, looking at the photograph Minho had already pulled up. "This is someone else's language. I'm someone who knows about Cheon but isn't Cheon." "Who?" He looked at her. He made a decision about how much to say, which was the kind of decision he usually made quickly and without second thoughts. He second-thought this one, not from doubt, from something else. "There's a group called the BEC Consortium," he said. "They've been trying to acquire control of specific infrastructure projects in this district for 2 years. The Seongbuk connector is one of them. When the budget was restored, they lost a mechanism they'd been using to stall it." "Your 15% stake," she said. He looked at her. "I did research," she said unapologetically. "When someone fixes your contract, you find out how." He almost smiled. "Yes, my stake is part of the consortium that blocked them. They consider me an interference. I'm there informing you that they consider you one too." "They should have sent a better note," she said. "The syntax was weak. If you're going to threaten someone, commit to it." Minho made the face again. The internal collapse. You're not taking this seriously enough, Seo Jin said. No, I'm taking it completely seriously, she corrected him. I'm just not taking it personally, there's a difference. Taking it personally would mean I was surprised. I am not surprised. I am, however, annoyed because these people are interfering with my bridge. She looked at him directly. What do you need from me? He looked at her for a moment. For the next week, I'd like you to work from the Obsidian building. We have a design studio on the 14th floor. Full drafting equipment, everything you need. Your team can continue on site. Want you oversee from a location that's easier to secure. You want to put me in your building. I want to put you somewhere with 8-inch steel doors and 40 men who are very good at their jobs. And you? She said. Are you good at your job, Mr. Han? I've been told I'm adequate, he said. She laughed again, the sudden, unguarded kind. It happened faster this time. He noticed that it happened faster. Fine, she said. 1 week, and I need direct communication with Do-hyun at all times. He's my site foreman. He doesn't go a day without a status call. And I need my food. I have a specific cooker and a specific brand of rice, and I'll bring them myself. You can bring anything you need. I know, she said. I'm informing you, not asking for permission. He looked at her for a moment. One understood. Minho drove her back to the guest house to collect her things. On the way, she sent Do-hyun a voice note explaining the arrangement, then sat looking out the window at Seoul in November, all concrete and glass, and a sky the color of old silver. She was not afraid. She admitted to herself, with the precision of an engineer making an accurate measurement, in a situation that was considerably more interesting than a bridge, and she had always been drawn to interesting structures. The 14th floor studio was, objectively, the most beautiful workspace Sophia had ever occupied. She did not say this out loud because it would have been satisfying to say, and she had learned that satisfying statements were often strategically better left unsaid. Instead, she unpacked her notebooks. I plugged in her cooker in the corner where an apparently confused Minho had installed a small kitchen station at someone's instruction, and set up her drafting table exactly the way she liked it. Parallel ruler on the left, 3 mechanical pencils ranked by lead weight on the right, and her battered first engineering textbook from Enugu, used as a monitor stand because the screen was always at the wrong angle, and she was not interested in neck problems. The first day she saw Seo Jin only briefly, in the hallway near the elevator. He was with 4 men in suits whose collective energy suggested a disagreement was about to become someone else's problem. He stopped when he saw her. The men stopped too. Studio working for you? He said. The light is good in the afternoon, she said. The morning light comes from the wrong angle. Han, I've moved the desk. Move whatever you need. I did, she said. Good, he said. Let me know if you need anything else. I need better tea. Whatever that is in the cabinet is not tea. It's a suggestion of tea. He said something brief to one of the men, then he continued down the hallway. She went back to the studio. 40 minutes later, a woman arrived with 6 varieties of loose-leaf tea, a proper ceramic teapot, and the expression of someone who had been given precise instructions. She set everything on the counter, bowed slightly, and left. Sophia stood in front of the tea selection for a moment. She picked up one tin, read it. Her name was written on a small label on the side in very neat handwriting. A. Okonkwo. She thought about the way he listened when she talked about the bridge. She made tea. She drank it. She went back to work because the bridge was load-bearing and feelings as established were not. The Bake Consortium made their next move on Friday. It was not a note this time. Sophia learned about it from Do-hyun at 6:30 in the morning, before she had finished her first cup of tea, which she felt was genuinely unreasonable timing for bad news. 3 of her survey markers at the East Bank had been moved. Not removed, moved, precisely, deliberately in a way that would have introduced an 18-centimeter error into any measurements taken after them. An error that would propagate through every calculation built on those measurements. An error that could have caused the completed bridge structure to fail load tests 6 months from now. And if the error was large enough and the load tests were skipped for budget reasons, it could have caused something considerably worse. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. That made it significantly worse than a threatening note. She put her tea down very carefully. She called Do-hyun back. Don't touch anything. Document the positions with photographs from 3 angles. I'm coming to the site. Ms. Sophia, Mr. Minho said you're not supposed to. Tell Mr. Minho I'm coming to the site to protect 18 months of engineering work and the structural integrity of a public bridge. He can decide whether that is a security risk worth arguing about. She was on the 14th floor when Seo Jin found her putting on her coat. You're not going to the site, he said. Hello to you too, she said. Yes, I am. The Bake Consortium sent people there. It's not safe. Those people have already left. One, they moved my survey markers and went home feeling pleased with themselves. If I don't go correct the record now, Do-hyun will take measurements from the wrong positions and we'll have to rerun 3 weeks of calculations. She pulled on her second sleeve. I understand your concern. I am also going. Sophia. It was the first time he had used her first name. He said it the way someone says a word they've been careful about and then stop being careful. The consortium has resources. We don't know what they've left at that site beyond the markers. She stopped buttoning her coat. She looked at him. She saw for the first time that underneath the composure, the beautiful, controlled, architectural composure of Han Seo Jin, there was something else. And something that looked like the particular anxiety of a man who has calculated a risk and does not like the calculation. Let me take a team to check the site first, he said. 1 hour, then you go. She read his face, not the surface, the thing behind it. 1 hour, she said. 1 hour, he confirmed. The team checked the site in 52 minutes. Clean. The markers had been moved, nothing else. She went in with Do-hyun, spent 2 hours repositioning and redocumenting everything, and came back to the tower with mud on her boots and the specific satisfaction of a structural problem correctly resolved. Seo Jin was in the building's main lobby when she returned. She did not know if he had been there for 2 hours or 2 minutes. His expression was calibrated to reveal nothing about that question. All clear, she said. I know. I'm Minho called. She looked at him. You waited. He looked back at her. The lobby has good coffee. There is no coffee in this lobby, she said. I walked through it this morning. I had some sent down. She understood then that he had been standing in a lobby for approximately 2 hours because he was the kind of man who did not know how to wait comfortably when someone was somewhere he considered insufficient and had resolved this by simply placing himself closer to the situation. She understood this because she was an engineer and she understood load-bearing. Come have dinner, she said. He looked at her. I have. Whatever you have, it can be rescheduled. I'm cooking. I have a cooker. I have rice. I have the ingredients for stew that I bought yesterday. You fixed my contract. You've housed me in your building. Anh and your people have been watching my back for a week. The correct response to all of that is a meal. She tilted her head. I was raised properly. He was quiet for a long moment. I don't eat at 9 p.m., he said. It's 7:40. We'll be eating by 8:15 if you stop arguing. He told Minho he'd be in the studio. He went upstairs with a woman who was already listing ingredients under her breath and gesturing with her hands. The studio kitchen was small. Sophia operated in it like someone who had decided space was a suggestion and efficiency was the actual variable. She moved around him. He had sat at the drafting table because she had pointed at it with a wooden spoon and said, sit. With the organized confidence of a person who cooked the way she engineered, by understanding systems. And she made Nigerian beef stew with the ingredients she had, which were not perfectly aligned with what she would have chosen but were, she explained to the room as she worked, sufficient. The beef had been marinating since morning. The tomatoes were Korean and slightly different but workable. The crayfish she had imported herself because some things were non-negotiable. The smell that filled the studio was warm and complex, and so entirely out of place in the 14th floor of a glass tower in Seoul that it created a kind of dislocation. The sudden presence of a world that had not been there before. Seo Jin, who had been looking at her tension redistribution calculations on the drafting table beside him, stopped looking at them. He watched her cook instead. He watched the way she moved with purpose, not performance. The way she tasted things with complete attention, adjusted them, moved on. The way she hummed when she wasn't thinking about humming, a low rhythm under her breath that suggested she was content without being aware that she was signaling it. He had been in the studio every day this week for meetings. It had never felt like this. It had never felt exactly like a place where someone lived. "You hum when you're focused," he said. She looked at him over her shoulder. "I know. My team at the site stops what they're doing to tell me it means I've solved something. Apparently the frequency changes." She turned back. "Minho does it too, by the way, very quietly, after your elevator. You might tell him it's not as subtle as he thinks." Seo Jin was quiet for a moment. "On, I'll tell him." They ate at the drafting table because it was the largest surface. She cleared a section of his calculations to one side, gently, precisely, and set 2 plates down. He had not been served food by another person who was not a professional in so long that the act of someone placing a plate in front of him with simple domestic care registered as something genuinely foreign. He ate. He was quiet for a moment. "This is extraordinary," he said. "I know," she said, not immodestly, just accurately. "My grandmother taught me. She said a woman who can build things and feed people is undefeatable. I think she was right." She was right. They ate. The silence between them was the kind that had been building for a week of brief encounters and careful, not quite conversations. And it had arrived at a point where it was less silence and more its own form of communication. "Tell me something true," Sophia said. He looked at her. "What kind of true?" "The kind you don't usually say out loud." He considered this. He was not a man who offered things without understanding the full cost, but she had cooked in his building and called him to his own lobby to wait and talked about her grandmother, and the cost calculation felt tonight like a different kind of arithmetic. "I built everything I have," he said, "so that nothing could be taken from me again. I was very thorough. I succeeded." He looked at his plate. "I didn't account for the fact that a life built entirely on not losing feels, from the inside, very much like something that still needs building." She was quiet. "That's a true thing," she said. "Ma, yes." "Here is mine," she said. "I have never stayed anywhere long enough for it to matter. Every project, every city, every country. I build the thing and I leave. I told myself it was because I was devoted to the work. I think some of it was because I was afraid that if I stayed somewhere, I would find out whether I was the kind of person worth staying for." She said it simply, with no theater, her eyes on her plate and then lifting to his. "You are," he said. She looked at him for a long moment. The architecture of a smile arrived. This time she let it stay. "We'll see," she said. "This bridge has another 14 months. Han Seo Jin was not a man who smiled easily. He was aware of this. He was aware that he was smiling now, and he did not correct it. Then I have 14 months to make a case." "You have 14 months to not get in my way while I build a bridge," she said. "The case is a secondary project." He looked at her. "I can work with that." 3 days later, the Beck consortium escalated. It was Minho who brought it to Seo Jin at 6 a.m., with the face of a man delivering confirmed intelligence and the measured voice of someone who had learned that the quality of information mattered more than the speed of the reaction to it. The consortium had made contact with a man named Shin Woo-soo, a procurement official within the Hanyang Infrastructure Group, who had access to Sophia's engineering specifications. The specifications that, if altered before submission for the permit review process, would introduce a flaw into the official record, I attributable to the engineer of record, to Sophia. It was elegant in the way Seo Jin recognized from experience, not violence, not a threat, but a mechanism for destroying someone's career and the project simultaneously. An engineering error on her record. The bridge delayed or canceled. Director Cheon restored to relevance. The consortium in control. He read the intelligence twice. Then he stood at the window for 11 seconds. Minho had learned to count them. The number of seconds his boss stood still before action was usually proportional to the severity of what he was about to do. 11 seconds. "How long do we have before Shin submits the specifications?" he said. "He's scheduled to receive them from Sophia's team Thursday. Submission deadline is Monday." Today was Tuesday. "Find Shin Woo-soo." A pause. And tell me everything about the consortium's relationship with the permit office. I want to know who signed what and when." He did not tell Sophia that morning. He told himself it was because he didn't have enough certainty yet, and that was partly true. It was also true that he had looked at her Tuesday evening eating her own stew and saying something honest, and he understood that what the consortium was trying to do to her was not merely strategic. It was targeting someone who had built 20 years of integrity, one structure at a time, trying to reduce all of it to a falsified document. He found himself feeling something he had not felt in a professional context for a very long time, which was personal. He noted this feeling with the neutrality of a man examining an unfamiliar structural element. One, he noted that the feeling was load-bearing. He noted that this made things more complicated, and he was not, in this particular moment, interested in less complicated. He called his legal contact. He called his person inside the Hanyang procurement office. He called two contacts he hadn't spoken to in 4 months because the occasions hadn't arisen. He dismantled the mechanism methodically and thoroughly, the way a person removes a structural flaw from a design, not with force, but by understanding exactly what was holding it in place and removing that thing specifically. Shin Woo-soo resigned from Hanyang by Wednesday evening, citing personal reasons. He left the country by Thursday morning. The consortium's route to the permit office closed 20 minutes before Sophia's specifications arrived. She submitted the correct specifications on Friday. She didn't know any of this until Saturday when Seo Jin told her. She was at the drafting table when he came in. She looked up, read his face, she was getting faster at it, and put down her pencil. He told her everything, not edited for her comfort. The full shape of what the consortium had tried, what he'd found, what he'd done. He told her because she was the kind of person who handled truth better than protection, and because withholding it felt now like a kind of disrespect. She was quiet for a long time when he finished. "They were going to put my name on a falsified specification," she said. "Yes." "My name," she said again, quieter. 31 years old, building bridges in 4 countries. My name is the only thing in this entire world that is only mine. One, my grandmother gave it to me. My career is built on it." She looked at the table. "They were going to take my name and put it on a lie." He said nothing. There was nothing to say that improved on the truth. "Thank you," she said, the same way she'd said it in the cafe, direct, without calculation, but this time with something underneath it that hadn't been there before. "You don't have to thank me every time," he said. "Yes, I do," she said. She looked up at him. "And because I was raised properly, I'm going to ask you something honestly, and I need you to answer honestly." "Ask." "How much of what's happening around this project is because of the bridge, and how much is because of me specifically?" He held her gaze. "Both. The project was already a target. One, you became a target when you became a variable they couldn't manage. Because you restored my contract. Because you submitted a solution that 3 other firms couldn't find," he said. "They didn't know what to do with someone who simply solved the problem." She was quiet. Then, "Are we in danger? Actual, serious danger?" "I don't use that word casually. The consortium has resources and patience. They've retreated from this approach, which means they'll find another one. I am managing this." "I need to be part of managing this," she said. Not informed after the fact, part of it. He looked at her. "You're an engineer." "I'm an engineer who is currently inside a situation that could end my career or my safety or both. I don't wait outside problems. I go inside them and figure out how they work." She held his gaze. "Han, I was built for load-bearing. Let me carry some of this." He made the decision the way he made all decisions that mattered, completely without retreating from it. "Monday," he said. "Minho will brief you on everything. You'll understand the full picture." She nodded once. "Good, now." She picked up her pencil. "Sit down. I want to show you the tension redistribution revision. The updated soil data changed the ratios. It's actually more elegant than the first version." He sat down. She showed him the revision. He asked 3 questions. She answered all of them before he finished asking, and at some point during the second explanation, their shoulders were nearly touching over the drafting table, which neither of them commented on. They stayed in the studio until 11 p.m. Nobody mentioned it the next morning, but Minho, one who had stood outside the studio door at 10:45 and observed the light still on, filed this information in the particular internal record he kept of things that were significant, but not his to comment on. He was very thorough. He had learned it from watching his boss. The meeting happened on a Monday. Minho, Sophia, Seo Jin, and two others in the war room on the 22nd floor, which did not look like a war room because it had floor-to-ceiling windows and a table that cost more than Sophia's first apartment, but functioned as one. The Bayek Consortium's full structure was mapped on a screen she had not seen before. Names, relationships, financial flows, the procurement networks, the political connections. It was not small. She took notes, methodical, precise. On her engineer's brain, organizing the information the way she organized structural data, in systems, with load paths, asking always where the weight was actually being held. Here, she said 20 minutes in, tapping a name on the screen. Young Pyong-chul, he's the structural permit authority for the Seongbuk district. If the consortium needs a new mechanism, it goes through him. Minho looked at the screen, looked at Seo Jin. She found that in 20 minutes, he said without expression. He's the bottleneck, Sophia said. Remove the bottleneck or secure the bottleneck. Those are the two options. Securing is preferable, Seo Jin said. Removing creates noise. Then someone needs to speak with Young Pyong-chul before the consortium does. She looked at Seo Jin. Can you do that? Yes. And the financial flow here. She pointed. 3 companies, same beneficial owner. If that owner is connected to the consortium, their permit applications in the last 2 years are all compromised. That's leverage. How do you know it's the same beneficial owner? She gave him a look. The company names, Seokbuk Engineering Partners, Seokbuk Infrastructure Solutions, Seokbuk Capital Consultants, they're not even trying. Someone filed these with the same naming consultant on a budget. Minho made the internal face. He was doing it more often now. He had started to look almost fond, which for Minho was the equivalent of a standing ovation. They built a counter-strategy in 3 hours. By the end, she had drawn a diagram on paper, clean, annotated, that mapped the consortium's pressure points and the corresponding responses. It looked, structurally, one like a load redistribution diagram. Seo Jin looked at it. You approach everything like a bridge. Everything is a bridge, she said. You're trying to get from one point to another across a gap. The question is always how you distribute the weight. He looked at the diagram for another moment, then at her. I want to show you something, he said. They drove to the Seongbuk site in the late afternoon, just the two of them and a driver and one man from security who stayed at a respectful distance. The bridge framework stood against the November sky, rising above the tributary in clean steel lines, still skeletal, but already demonstrating the shape it would become. She stood at the east bank and looked at it. He stood beside her. When it's finished, she said, oh, it'll carry 40,000 people a day. I know. 40,000 people who will never know my name. They'll walk across it and feel the way you feel when you trust something without thinking about it. The way your foot comes down and the surface holds and you don't even notice because structures only get noticed when they fail. She looked at the steel. That's what I want. I want to build things that disappear into being trusted. He looked at her profile. The amber light of a Seoul afternoon, the bridge behind her, her face turned slightly up toward the framework with an expression he recognized from his own mirror at 17, when he'd decided on something and the decision felt larger than anything else in the room. The Seongbuk connector will be the most elegant piece of infrastructure in this district, he said. And it'll have your name on the permit. She turned to look at him. If the consortium doesn't get to Young Pyong-chul first? They won't, he said. She looked at him, the particular look, not the surface behind it. You're very certain, she said. I am, he said. About this specifically. She looked at the bridge for another moment, then she looked back at him. I've been in 12 cities in 9 years, she said. I told you that. I leave when the thing is finished. I know. I'm telling you again, she said, because I want you to have accurate information. I have accurate information, he said. I'm a man who works with long timelines. She was quiet. 14 months, she said. 14 months, he agreed. She looked at the bridge. He looked at her, looking at the bridge. The tributary moved below them, eye indifferent and silver, and Seoul hummed behind them with its million-person momentum. She said quietly, Ask Minho to pack the stew from the studio fridge. I want to eat it at the site. You want to eat at a construction site? I want to eat at my bridge, she corrected him. There's a difference. He called Minho. Minho arrived 18 minutes later with the stew, a proper container, 2 sets of utensils, and the expression of a man who had genuinely stopped being surprised and had begun to simply document things for the personal record he was apparently maintaining. They ate at the bridge. She told him about the tension redistribution in language that assumed he could follow it, which he could, mostly, and when he couldn't, he said so, and she explained it differently without impatience. And he told her about the year he'd spent in Busan at 22 before he built anything, when he had understood for the first time that power wasn't a thing you took. It was a thing you built, the same way you build anything. Foundation first, load-bearing elements, then the parts people actually saw. You sound like an engineer, she said. I've been listening to one for 3 weeks, he said. She laughed, the warm, sudden laugh. He had started cataloging the conditions that produced it. He had more data now. They stayed at the bridge until the light changed. Yongpyeong-chul was secured. The right word, Sophia thought. 2 weeks later. Seo Jin's people had found what was needed, which was evidence of the consortium's prior attempts to influence his office. Or evidence that Pyeongchul himself found significantly more threatening than anything Seo Jin offered him. People, Sophia was learning, often secured themselves when they understood the alternative. The permit process moved forward. The bridge moved forward. The consortium, 3 mechanisms dismantled in 4 weeks, went quiet. Not resolved. People like the Baek Consortium did not resolve. They recalculated. Seo Jin told her this on a Thursday over tea in the studio, while she was reviewing rebar specifications, and he had appeared in the doorway with the particular look of a man who has finished a thing and is aware the finish is temporary. They'll try again, he said. I know, she said, but not through the bridge. They've lost the bridge. She set down the specification sheet. They'll try through you. He looked at her. When you're the variable that can't be removed from the equation, she said. I can be moved, the project can be stalled, the permit can be complicated, but you're the stake in the financing consortium. You're the reason the budget restoration worked. If they want to control this project, they eventually have to move you. He was quiet. You've been thinking about this. I'm an engineer, she said. I think about load paths. She looked at him directly. You should think about it too, not to be afraid, to be prepared. I'm prepared. Good, then tell me what the preparation looks like, because I'm inside this now. Accurate information, remember? He told her. All of it. The current state of the consortium's known resources, the political protection they'd lost when 2 of their connections were exposed in the permit investigation, and the financial pressure Seo Jin had been applying for 6 weeks through channels she'd only partially understood. She listened the way she listened at the drafting table, completely without interrupting, building the picture. You're good at this, she said. I've had practice. No, she said. I mean, you're good at protecting things, not just strategically, the way you actually think about it. She looked at her tea. You called me at 10 at night when you found out about Cheon. You didn't have to. You could have just handled it. I could have. Why didn't you? He was quiet for a moment, the kind of quiet that was deciding something. Because you deserved to know what you were inside, he said, and because I wanted you to know that someone was... A pause. Paying attention. She looked at him for a long moment. The studio was warm, and outside Seoul was doing November things, gray and purposeful and vast. Han Seo Jin, she said, with the precision of someone making an accurate structural declaration. If something happens to you because of this project, I will not forgive myself. Nothing will happen to me. That is not an engineering standard, she said. That is wishful thinking. It's a structural certainty, he said. I've been building toward it for 15 years. Buildings fail, she said quietly. Then I'd better make sure mine is load-bearing. He held her gaze. Your design, the suspended tension redistribution, built for movement instead of against it. She understood he was not talking about the bridge. That only works, she said slowly, if the structure is honest about what it's carrying. I know what I'm carrying, he said. Han, I've known since a woman offered me jollof rice beside a dead car and looked at me like I was a person. The studio was very quiet. Sophia set down her tea. She looked at him with the full attention she brought to structural problems that had been carrying weight for a long time and were finally being correctly assessed. The consortium made their final move in February. It was not through the bridge. It was through a man named Director Baek In-soo. No relation to the consortium name, but a man who had been in their debt for 7 years, for reasons that were now fully documented and had been delivered to 2 federal prosecutors that morning by Min-ho, who had the systematic patience of a man who understood that the right moment for information was as important as the information itself. But before that delivery, there was one more night. And they came for the tower, not at midnight, earlier, 8 p.m., the hour of people who had stopped pretending this was a business dispute and were now simply trying to finish something. 12 men, 3 vehicles, a plan that had been constructed with more precision than their previous attempts, which meant they had learned, which meant they were more dangerous. Seo Jin knew at 7:43. Minho's intelligence was very good. He was on the 14th floor. He went there first. Sophia was at the drafting table. She looked up when he came through the door and read his face in under 2 seconds. She stood. "Something's happening," she said. It was not a question. "The consortium, tonight. I need you on a lower floor, secure room with—" "No," she said. He stopped. "I'm not going in a room," she said. "One, tell me what you need." Sophia. "I am not a woman you put in a room and protect," she said, with a clarity that was not anger and not fear, and was, in fact, considerably more formidable than either. "I'm a woman who builds things. Tell me what you need." He looked at her. He made a decision in approximately 3 seconds, which was fast for him, but he had the data he needed. "The building's structural access points," he said. "I need to know which are defensible." She turned to her desk, picked up a notebook, not the bridge notebook, a different one she'd been keeping since the Monday briefing. Floor plans, access routes, structural notes. She'd been mapping the building's architecture for 3 weeks without being asked. She put it open on the table. "I understand systems," she said. "One, I've been understanding this one." She looked at him. "Tell me everything and let's finish this." They spent 40 minutes in the studio, Minho on the phone, Sophia's floor plan on the table between them, Seo Jin mapping his people to the access points she had identified with the calm precision of 2 people who understood that panic was a structural weakness and they were not interested in structural weaknesses. She sat in the studio during what happened next, not in a sealed room. In the studio with the floor plans connected to Minho by phone, providing information when asked, which entrance had the narrower corridor, which stairwell didn't connect directly to the parking structure, which ventilation shaft her structural notes indicated was wide enough to be a problem. One things an engineer knew about a building that a security team might take weeks to map. Minho called her twice, used what she told him twice. The second time, she heard from his voice that it had mattered. Seo Jin was fine. She had not needed to be told that it was possible he might not be, but she had held that information in the same hand that held the food container at difficult moments, aware of it, not consumed by it, present in the now. When he came through the studio door at 10:27 p.m., whole and in one piece with a cut on his forearm that he was clearly not mentioning, she looked at him for one careful moment. "Sit down," she said. "I'll get the first aid kit." "It's fine." "Han Seo Jin," she said. "Sit down." He sat down. She found the kit in the studio's emergency cabinet, and which she had located on her first day because she located emergency exits and safety equipment automatically. She sat across from him, took his arm with both hands, and cleaned the cut with the focused precision of a person who had decided that this task deserved complete attention. He watched her work. "The floor plan," he said. "I've been building in your building for 2 months," she said. "I understand its structure." "You didn't tell me you were mapping it." "You didn't ask," she said, "but I knew it might matter." She applied the bandage, pressed it flat. "I told you, I don't wait outside problems." He looked at his arm, at her hands, still resting on it. "The prosecutors received the Beck documentation tonight," he said. "It's done. Insu will cooperate. The consortium is finished in this city." She looked up. "On the bridge." Continues, unobstructed. She was quiet for a moment. Then she exhaled, not a dramatic release, just the quiet breath of a person who has been carrying something for a while and has set it down. Good, she said. The permit is registered, he said. Your name. She looked at him for a long moment. Something moved through her face, deep and private and not for the room to have. She let it move through. My grandmother would say something at this point, she said. That would be wiser than anything I'm going to say. What would she say? She would say, Sophia paused, and her voice was softer than usual, the voice of someone quoting something that lives in a specific place. The river doesn't ask permission to find the sea. It moves because movement is what it was built for. She said it was about engineering, and I think she meant other things too. He looked at her hands, still resting on his arm. He turned his hand over slowly, palm up. She looked at it. She placed her hand in his. Neither of them said anything. Outside, Seoul was doing what it always did, moving, enormous, indifferent to the 10,000 important small things happening inside it. Inside the studio, two people held that position for a while, and it was enough. It was, by every measurement that mattered, everything. 8 months later, the Seongbuk elevated bridge connector opened on a Tuesday. Not a dramatic ceremony, she had been specific about that. No ribbon cutting, no speeches. She had asked for something quieter. The first 40,000 people to walk across it should not know it was a moment. They should just walk across and feel the surface hold. Aunt Sophia stood at the east bank at 7 a.m. and watched the first commuters cross. A man with a bicycle, a woman with 2 children, one on each hand, an elderly man who stopped in the middle to look at the tributary below, the way people look at things when they've lived beside them their whole lives and are still capable of finding them interesting. The bridge held. Of course it held. Seo Jin stood beside her. 14 months, she said. 14 months, he said. She looked at the bridge for a long moment. I'm being considered for a project in Lagos, she said. They're rebuilding the Echo Bridge approach. The commission was sent to me last week. He was quiet. Lagos. Yes, she looked at him. It's a significant project. 2 years. I know Lagos, he said. I have interests there. She looked at him. When you have interests everywhere. I'm expanding, he said. The continent has compelling infrastructure development. I've been thinking about it for a few months. She studied his face. She was very fast at this now. She saw what she was looking for immediately, the composure, and behind it, the particular quality of a man who has already made a decision and is waiting to see if the conversation confirms it. Han Seo Jin, she said, did you get interested in Nigerian infrastructure 2 months ago by coincidence? I don't believe in coincidence, he said. I believe in load paths, she said. Long timelines, he said. She looked at him. The river moved below them. 40,000 people a day, forever, on something she built, with her name on the permit. And beside her, a man who had held the things that mattered close and quiet, on the way she held the food container, the way she held structure itself, not from fear of losing it, but from understanding its worth. My mother wants to meet you, she said. She's been asking questions since I mentioned the car. You told your mother about the car. She asked why I was suddenly calling from a penthouse studio instead of a guest house in Mapogu. She tilted her head. I told her a building owner sent me a car. She immediately asked 3 very specific questions that I declined to answer. What were the 3 questions? Is he tall? Is he respectful? And does he eat properly? She said. In that order, she has priorities. He was quiet for a moment. I eat properly. I know, I've watched you for 14 months. She looked back at the bridge. She'll want jollof rice. Fair warning. I'll eat jollof rice. You'll like it, she said. Everyone likes it. It is objectively correct food. He looked at the bridge, then at her, then at the bridge again. Lagos, he said. Lagos, she said. I'll be there, he said, in whatever capacity is useful. She looked at him. The full look, the architecture of the smile arriving and staying completely, bright and unguarded, and for the first time entirely without reserve. You can be useful, she said. But you don't carry anything on my site without a hard hat. Non-negotiable. Agreed. And no sending cars. I'll have a working one by then. Statistically unlikely, based on the data. She laughed, the warm, complete laugh. He cataloged it. He had considerable data now. They stayed at the bridge until the morning light changed. Seoul moved around them with its indifferent, brilliant momentum, and below them, the tributary ran silver toward the sea, and above them, the bridge held 40,000 people moving through their ordinary Tuesday. It held because she had built it for movement instead of against it, because she understood that things which need to last are built with flexibility in their bones, with the acknowledgement that the ground shifts and the load changes and the structure must be honest about what it carries. She understood this about bridges. She understood now that she had understood it about other things too, for considerably longer than she had admitted. Her grandmother would have had something wise to say about that. She carried it with her, close and quiet and worth more than anything else she owned. Some months after the bridge opened, a package arrived at Seo Jin's office, Lagos postmark. Inside, a hard hat, yellow construction grade with a small embroidered sun on the front and a note in her handwriting. Project starts March. You said any capacity. Minimum requirement, this. Don't argue. He put the hard hat on the desk beside the coffee. He looked at it for a moment, then he picked up his phone and booked a flight. Minho, filing the travel request, made the face. He had been making the face regularly for 14 months. He had cataloged every occasion. He was, at this point, something like an expert on the subject. He filed it without comment. He was very thorough. He had learned it from watching someone he was beginning in the quiet way of people who work close to significant things, or to think of as a person who deserved to be watched for good reasons rather than strategic ones, which was, he thought, filing the Lagos accommodation confirmation, how it should go, how all of it should always go. If you watched until the end, you are exactly the kind of person this channel is for. Subscribe for more Afro-Korean stories that will keep you up until 3 a.m. Leave a comment with the word bridge if you want the Lagos chapter. Like if Sophia is your new favorite character, share this with one person who needs a story about a woman who walks into complicated situations and simply refuses to be managed by them. This is only the beginning.